Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. And we're going to talk about the Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Harry Potter Beginner's Box. All right? Beginner's Box, starter set, you can make it synonymous. All right, so I hear you're like, wait. Harry Potter Beginner Box? We'll say starter set. The Harry Potter Dungeons & Dragons starter set? When did that come out? It didn't, all right? So it doesn't exist at this point, but I want to talk today about the renewed possibility of it existing. All right, so let's talk about that. So first and foremost, the possibility of a Dungeons & Dragons Harry Potter starter set is distinctly refreshed today because of the Dungeons & Dragons Rick and Morty starter set, okay? The Dungeons & Dragons Rick and Morty starter set is the second themed licensed starter set that's come out this year for Dungeons & Dragons. The first was Stranger Things, the second was Rick and Morty. Stranger Things made a lot of sense on why it was created, and it was a delightful product. Rick and Morty makes absolutely no sense on why it was created. It really jumped the line. I think it's the last collaboration that Hasbro should have done. It bolts drunken nihilism to Dungeons & Dragons. It's really strange, right? However, what it does do is Rick and Morty says, well, you could do any kind of Dungeons & Dragons collaboration. There's almost no limit, right? Because it's such a stretch to get to the Dungeons & Dragons Rick and Morty starter set that it's just so problematic on so many levels. It really just opens up new possibilities and say, hey, you could do Dungeons & Dragons almost anything, right? So with that, why is it? That's just one reason why there's a renewed possibility of a Dungeons & Dragons Harry Potter starter set right now, okay? But first, let's talk about Harry Potter in the tabletop role-playing game world. Well, first of all, let's set the expectation here. The Harry Potter role-playing game has never existed. There has never been a Harry Potter role-playing game, and not an official licensed one. There have been many attempts to skin it. There have been unofficial releases of a Harry Potter game, but it doesn't matter how you could put $1 million up, you cannot buy an official Harry Potter's licensed tabletop role-playing game. It doesn't exist, right? And that makes it the absolute holy grail of tabletop role-playing game licenses, right? There's a lot of mystery around why Harry Potter has never been made as a tabletop role-playing game. It's its own subject. It's its own. I think I've actually done a video on it already, but I'm going to leave that in place, right? But it's really important, right? Now, there's no possibility that Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. By the way, I'm not going to say Wizards of the Coast anymore. I'm just going to say Hasbro. Hasbro has owned Dungeons & Dragons for 20 years. Might as well just start calling it what it is. So there's no possibility Hasbro hasn't already approached, Scholastic hasn't already approached J.K. Rowling to make a Harry Potter tabletop role-playing game. All that information is behind, is obscured from the public, right? But we know we don't have one, right? So why is right now a good time to renew the attempt to create a Harry Potter tabletop role-playing game, right? Well, one, these starter sets. These starter sets is an absolute perfect on-ramp for a product, right? So one, if this were to be sold to J.K. Rowling, right, they can point to the Rick and Morty starter set and to the Stranger Things starter set. They can give her the sales numbers, right, which aren't really that important. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they can also just bring them in for J.K. Rowling to see, right? And they can say, hey, we built these in 3 months or in 6 months. These are very contained. These products are delightful. They're small. Their risk is low, right? And when someone buys these, they get a whole product, right? This isn't the same as a Harry Potter tabletop role-playing game, which would be like a 350-page rule book, and then a whole, it'd be launching an entire product line, right? Whereas the starter sets inherently are contained, right? So this, it would be a much simpler sell to J.K. Rowling than a tabletop role-playing game. They could just say, listen, We already have 2 of these themed D&D starter sets. We want to do a D&D Harry Potter starter set, which would take players through years 1 through 7 in Hogwarts. We would completely, and this is my proposal for what would be in the box, 64-page rulebook, 64-page adventure, right? And a 64-page adventure is simply a very quick take-through of the players through years 1 through 7 of a student's study arc through years 1 through 7 at Hogwarts. Nothing would happen outside of Hogwarts, and there really wouldn't even be any big bad in Hogwarts. It would literally be focused on the player characters learning their spells, interacting with their teachers, interacting with the ghosts in Hogwarts. Every single aspect of the game would be contained within Hogwarts. Also, it would happen between the time when Tom Marvolo Riddle graduated and before Harry Potter arrived at Hogwarts, right? So it's kind of a prequel, which means there's less risk on it adding on anybody's story, adding content to the Harry Potter world, right? And all these are important because I guarantee you, adding to the Harry Potter world is probably one of the concerns that has kept J.K. Rowling from accepting, right, an offer to make a tabletop role-playing game out of Harry Potter. Excuse me. So, with that said, it contains it, right? So basically, you have 2 successful products that you can show J.K. Rowling. You have a really nice contained product that can be built within 3 to 6 months. You can prove that the product will be delightful. You can prove that the product will put goodwill on the Harry Potter line. It will get lots of press coverage, just the way the other 2 boxes did. All of this is helpful to J.K. Rowling, and that is a very, very big deal. And the reason why is, at this point, J.K. Rowling there was a point where J.K. Rowling literally had more money than the Queen, right? J.K. Rowling doesn't need money, right? Now, of course, when she makes Harry Potter products, money is involved, right? So she may at this point want to add another $250 million to her coffers, right? And when J.K. Rowling is approached about this product, it may turn out to be about money, right? But there's a good chance it won't be about money. There's a good chance it will be about something else, right? And if that's the case, if it is about money, that's really not a problem. Hasbro has money, right? Its stock price is at $100 a share, and in addition to that, it is specifically Hasbro just bought Death Row Records. In addition to that, earlier this year, or I think in 2018, one or the other, Hasbro paid $500 million to buy lock, stock, and barrel all of the Power Rangers material, right? That's a huge purchase, right? So Hasbro can throw money at this problem if they want to. If they really want to make this collaboration between J.K. Rowling and Dungeons & Dragons happen, they can throw money at it, right? So that's one approach. In addition to this, and it really might be worth it, because the Harry Potter books really they're generational. They're a lot like Pokemon, right? There are going to be generations and generations and generations of kids in the future that will be reading these books. That's a certainty. There's really no 2 ways around that, right? In addition to that, there's another approach to get this done, right? Because I'll tell you right now, we already know for a fact that J.K. Rowling's not super happy about the idea of a tabletop role-playing game being made out of Harry Potter. She's never allowed it, right? But why is right now an important time? Well, one, the release of the starter sets, right? And then also, right now, for the first time ever, Harry Potter's momentum is starting to trend down, right? So the first 8 Harry Potter movies did tremendously. Every single one of them made over $750 million, and one of them made over $1.25 billion, right? So all of them are between $0.75 billion, or actually all of them are well over $850 million and between $1.3 million, right? But the Fantastic Beasts movies, there have been 2 of them, they have been trending down. The first one did worse than any Harry Potter movie in history. And the second one, it was $812 million. And then the second one was a dramatic drop beyond that, right? And it was $0.6 billion, right? Now, 0.8 and $0.6 billion, like nobody's crying in their beer over that, right? Those are good numbers, but the momentum is going down. In addition to that, J.K. Rowling very well may be incented to do something that would get Harry Potter goodwill for not only because the momentum is starting to go down and Dungeons & Dragons could help pick it back up, right? And Dungeons & Dragons is uniquely suited to that, right? More than Dungeons & Dragons products really don't bring the people who collaborate with Dungeons & Dragons lots of money. They bring a little bit of money, but they bring a ton of street cred and a ton of goodwill. That's really the most unique thing about the Dungeons & Dragons brand is it just has such goodwill and it has such a pristine, amazing fan base. Its fan bases are Dungeons & Dragons fan base is ridiculously high education, high affluency, right? Like it's a very unique, very special demographic that is incredibly valuable for marketers to have relationships with, right? And J.K. Rowling may be very, very interested in that, right? So all of that. Oh, and in addition to that, we got to talk about it, right? All right, so let's talk about this. In addition to that, right now, J.K. Rowling is living through Brexit and is living through Boris Johnson, right? And so right now, I know for a fact, right? Like if you just listen to what J.K. Rowling is talking about, Brexit has her upset, and Boris Johnson has her very, very upset, right? And and you might think that's not related to Dungeons and Dragons. It is, right? And here's why. Again, these starter sets are the most delightful of products. They're like little cute bunny products, right? And the other thing is Dungeons and Dragons. It's a gigantic pain in the butt, right, at the macro level, right? Oh, hey, you want to play Dungeons and Dragons? Here's your 250-page PHP. Here's your 250-page Dungeon Master Guide. Here's your 250-page Monster Manual. Now, you got to go get dice for every single player. Oh, you need pencils. Oh, you need character sheets that you got to print out, right? Like, it's a whole thing, right? Where when you buy these starter sets, you pick that sucker up, you're done. You're ready, right? Everybody needs pens. Beyond that, you're covered, right? Like, you got everything you need in a box. It's a big deal. They're delightful. They're wonderful. And the idea that right now, J.K. Rowling really might want something delightful in her life, right? To work on, to be involved with. Because the reality is, right now, what she chooses to connect Harry Potter to is not really, it doesn't have to be about money, right? It can be if she wants it to be, but it doesn't have to be, right? There's one last thing that could be the key that unlocks all of this. All right, so in order to make the Dungeons & Dragons Harry Potter starter set happen, you have to get J.K. Rowling on board, okay? Well, like we said, she may not care about money, right? And the reality is Dungeons & Dragons starter set ain't going to bring that much money anyway. Even a full Harry Potter tabletop role-playing game would not bring that much money, right? Like, when you're talking about video games and towels and, Hollywood movies, tabletop role-playing game money is ridiculously small. The entire tabletop role-playing game industry is $75 million a year. Like, it's just not that much when it comes to J.K. Rowling type money, right? So, with that said, what could incent J.K. Rowling to allow this Dungeons & Dragons Harry Potter starter set to happen? 2 words. Kate Welch. All right? So Kate Welch is, I've been saying this since day one when she arrived and started working at Hasbro Games. She basically, it has always been my opinion that Kate Welch is being groomed specifically to be the Dungeons & Dragons design lead. Right now, this is a big deal because it'd be the first time a woman has ever been the Dungeons & Dragons design lead. Okay. She would have Mike Merle's job. She would have the same job that Gary Gygax had, right? Now, that is a historical first, right? Guess what? J.K. Rowling is incredibly dialed in on firsts for women, okay? So Dungeons & Dragons has absolutely massive political, cultural, and social meaning within American politics, right? Within the American sphere, right? Within America, right? And frankly, within the world, right? And the idea that that J.K. Rowling could help to solidify, right, the future of Kate Welch as a strong contender for the design lead, or simply, put a feather in the cap of Kate Welch to give her momentum, which is not an easy thing to do, right? Right now, the tabletop role-playing game industry is desperately trying to fix decades of poor engagement with female designers, right? But almost overnight, J.K. Rowling can hand a victory to Kate Welch that no other, tabletop role-playing game marketer, no other tabletop role-playing game company CEO, no other tabletop role-playing game industry professional of any level has ever been able to deliver an actual tabletop role-playing game Harry Potter product, right? And so, so Kate Welch could sit down with J.K. Rowling. That's not easy. That would take weeks or months to arrange, even the meeting, right? But again, Hasbro is a multi-billion, Hasbro is a multi-billion-dollar company, right? They're real deal, like they're global, right? And so, even though it would be difficult, Hasbro could probably get Kate Welch 15 minutes of time talking to J.K. Rowling. And with that, with J.K. Rowling seeing that Kate Welch has done 2 years of work and has been the design lead for Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and was the design lead for the Rick and Morty product, and has been the design lead, and has been, a key designer on multiple products, she can see that Hasbro Games is actually committed to having female design leads moving forward with the product, right? And so I desperately want this. I want a Dungeons & Dragons Harry Potter starter set. And I think right now, sequencing is incredibly important. You could do all the right things, but if you don't do them in the right order, you will have problems, right? But right now, the iron is hot. It's time to strike the iron with the forging hammer, right? And right now, I think there's a renewed opportunity to make what has never happened in the 20 years, in the approaching 20 years of Harry Potter history, and create an official tabletop role-playing game product with the official Harry Potter label on it. I think this is a great idea. I think it's a really renewed opportunity. I think it's really special. And I really think it's important that Hasbro Gaming moves forward with this. And I think it's really important also that Kate Welch leverages the momentum she has and tries to get this done. I think it's incredibly important, and there will be a lot of benefits. All that is my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on the topic. Please let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.